with just some simple tools, you can also change your differential fluid. Hello again, Mike from Nevada. Welcome back. Today it's time to change my differential fluid. This experience had its challenges, but as you will see, with just some simple tools, you can also change, your oil, your differential fluid. So today I'm going to show you how I did mine, both the front and the back. So first off, I opened the bonnet, started to sort of clean up the area a little bit because you don't want any dust or any sort of contaminants going into the differential fluid fill hole. So I gave it a bit of a wipe down, undid the bolts for the airbox, as well as take off some of the hoses that were connected to it. I couldn't quite figure out how to take the airbox out completely, so I sort of just put it to the side. I was able to sort of rest it on top of the coil pack. Next, I went to jack up the car. My jack is like the most base level jack that you can get at super cheap, so you can't really jack it that high. Luckily, I was able to get it to about the second tier up, which is still quite low. Yeah, that's about where my jack maxes out. So my recommendation to you, if you're going to do this on your own car, maybe don't get the base level jack, because once you're under the car and you realize you can't hardly even move, it's a little bit, you get yourself stuck in a pickle. Well, for one, you got to get the job done, but two, it's like you're really constraining yourself, in the space that you can work. So if you can get a jack that, maybe can lift an extra 20 mils, it'll give you just that extra bit of space. And also you won't get into a situation where you feel like you're not going to be able to get the jacks out because you jacked it up to its max point, but you also put the jack stands to their max point. So yeah, my recommendation if you're going to do this is maybe get the next level up jack, because that'll make your life a little bit easier. But anyways, so I forgot to film jacking up the back, but it's essentially similar to the front. You just jack from the rear differential. Pretty solid spot to jack up the car. Got the car up on all four stands, gave it a bit of a shake test. I always put the jack as like a 5th point of contact, just to be safe. As I'm going to start on the rear differential, boy, let me tell you, it's really giving me a run for my money, because that thing was not coming loose. I tried and I tried and I tried and used the hammer to try and maybe hammer it down. And especially when you're so low to the ground, you don't have hardly any space to move, so you've got only a short range of motion. Another thing I would say is invest in a longer breaker bar, because I got a decent set that had like 3 of them, but as you see, it's still relatively short, and that's my longest breaker bar. I thought of all different types of things I could connect to create more leverage, and I just had nothing. It's still possible to do this job with basic tools, but it is a bit of a challenge, but anyone can do it if they set their mind to it. But anyways, I was trying and trying and trying, and at some point I was like, man, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm gonna have to take it to the shop and have them do it, because I was just, for the life of me, using my whole body weight, just trying to get myself to crack this bolt loose, and it was just not coming out. So I decided, let's take a break. Let's move on to the front. Let's give that a shot. If I absolutely can't do that, then I'll have to, a bigger breaker bar to create more leverage, or take it to a shop. But I was thinking to myself, nah, I'm not gonna leave this garage until I get the job done. I went to the front of the car. It's got like this T70 bit, so it's like a star bit. So that was interesting. First time I ever used one of those. And it felt like it goes in so little that you feel like it could just slip out any moment. But I tried and I cracked it loose, and I was like, oh, hallelujah. I took the bolt off and the liquid came out, and it looked relatively clean. It did have a little bit of wear, which is expected, because I don't know when the last time the differential fluid was changed on this car. Which brings up another good point, that it's always good to refresh all the fluids when you buy a car, privately on Marketplace or from a dealership, just so that way that the fluid has been changed. Yeah, that's what I would recommend, is changing all the fluids you can. Maybe not all at once, but within a relatively, short time frame, just so everything is up to speed, everything's solid. I took the fill plug and I inspected it, and there was just the usual sort of gray grime that you would normally expect. no shards of metal, which is a great thing to know because as I later found out, I was about a liter of fluid short. That was a bit concerning, but seems like all's good, no shards. After I emptied the front differential fluid, I then cleaned up the plug hole around it with a microfiber cloth, and then I screwed it in, torqued it to 32 point something foot-pounds, and then from the top, I tried to finagle this funnel into this differential fill plug, which for the last year, I had no idea I had a dipstick because it was so grimy from just years of road dust and sludge and all this. Yellow dipstick itself was like just so dirty you couldn't see like this yellow stick. But I found it. I cleaned off the handle as best as I could and found my way with this funnel through all these cables and cords and stuck it in there. And then I filled it up. At first, I started with 2.5 liters because I found that that's how much had came out. And I didn't know at the time that that was low. So then I let it sit. I let all that fluid sit in there, the 2.5 liters. I checked the dipstick and there was no reading on the dipstick. I was like, huh, strange. I'm doing this work down in the basement, so there's no internet connection. So I can't quickly, ask ChatGPT or Claude or Google how much fluid I need. I bought more than enough for this job for both the front and the back. So what I had to do to ask Claude was go to the edge of our underground car park and just stick my hand out to the ground floor of outside and just sort of hold my phone and wait for it to give me my answer. And it indicated that I was about a liter short. I added bit by bit about maybe 300, 400 mil. It's better to underfill than to overfill because then you have to drain it or you have to, suction it out, and it's just a whole nother headache. So I got the fluid at the right level, just slightly under full, and I feel like it's good enough for me. Put the dipstick back in, wiped the funnel, and now it was to tackle the beast in the back. So I went back there and I brought out my handy racing gloves because I felt like I needed the extra torque. I didn't manage to get the actual cracking loose on camera because I was just going at it, and I didn't want my phone storage to fill up. So I did sort of like a reenactment. I finally got that bolt loose, and then I did the bottom one as well and let that all drain. When I inspected the drain plug, the bottom one on the rear diff, I was expecting it to have a similar sort of magnet setup like the front diff, but it looked relatively clean. The next step from my research online, they recommend to pump a little bit of this fluid through with the bottom plug open just to flush out any additional bits of grime or whatever that got left behind. So that's what I did. And then next, put the bottom bolt in, torqued it to about 32 or 36 foot-pounds. Then I started to pump the fluid through the top plug. And you're full once you start to see it start to drain out from the top. And like the front differential, I cleaned up around the plug, put that one in, again, 32 to 36 foot-pounds. I can't remember exactly which one. Torqued it down, cleaned it up, took the car off the jacks. Now, that was another thing about the jacks, was trying to work out how and what order to take them off the jacks, because I had gone 2 notches up on both sides. When I tried to jack the car up from the rear, from the rear differential, I realized that my jack was maxed out and it couldn't push the car any higher. What I had to do is I had to go to like one side, jack it up, lower it down by 1 notch, go to the other side, jack it up, lower it by 1 notch, and then I had to, instead of going from the rear diff, I had to go from the sides to sort of jack up the rear and bring those down a notch, and then so on and so forth. So it was quite a process trying to get everything down. Yeah, but then I did it, and I just feel this sense of accomplishment that you go through adversity, you're trying to get this bolt off and you just absolutely cannot, but you take a breather, you build up your confidence by doing the front, and then you return to your nemesis and you get it done. It's just such a great feeling to know that, like, for pump syringe, for the funnel, and then for the fluid, I got 2.5 liters of fluid. So all in all for this, it was about just under 200. But now that I've got the syringe and I've got the funnel, now it's just going to cost $60 or $50 for the fluid whenever I want to change it. So it costs a little bit up front to get the tools and the supplies you need to do the job. But once you have them, every job after that is like heaps cheaper. And so like that's something rewarding about working on your car, is you save so much money, but you also feel like the sense of accomplishment, like, wow, I did something with my hands. Especially me as a designer, I'm working on the computer all day, looking at a screen. You don't use your hands in a tactile way like that very often. So it's nice to have these small little jobs on my car. I hope you guys thought this video was interesting or even informative on how you might be able to do your differential fluid. And if you have done your differential fluids, whether it's the front, the back, or both, let me know how you went with it. Was it also a challenge for you trying to get that rear diff bolt off? If it is, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that down below. Also, if you are an experienced mechanic and you saw that I did anything wrong or I left out some, good practices of this particular job, let me know down below, because I'm just learning how to work on my car with each job that I do. And yeah, it's a whole lot of fun to do. But yeah, if you've got any feedback on how I might be able to improve in certain areas, leave it down in the comments below. It'll not only help me, but it'll help anyone else that this video reaches. And until next time, I'll see you later.